Moving on to these slides, how organizational culture forms. Organizational culture actually derive from the founder philosophies, visions, and ideas, and so on. So it starts with the founders' philosophy. That's the philosophy and visions behind the creation of the organizations, and then it's influence hiring criteria as firm grows. If the organization could develop some growings, so is the selections criteria or the selection of the employees actually also been influenced by the philosophy of the organizations that affects the selecting the hiring criteria. And the success of the socializations depend on the matching between values of the candidates or values of the new employees with the organizations in the selection process and top management as well. So top management uh, selection process and top management's practices also can influence the organizational culture. So as you can see here, the slide start with the philosophy of the founders and influence selection criteria, and these influence top managements and also the whole socialization in the organizations leads to organizational culture. So how employees learn about the culture? So employee learns about the culture can be through stories, maybe from the senior, from the managers, through ritual, through symbols, and through language. So through stories are actually through including narrative about the organizational founders, rule breakings, rags to riches. All these actually narrative about the organizations, about the story. Many new employees or candidate when they read the website of the organization, they will see about the narrative of the founders, how the founders developed these organizations, the background of the founders. So they read the story. So this actually could transpire into the culture, the practice of the culture. And also through ritual that means repetitive sequences of the activities in the organizations that express and reinforce the key values of the organizations. Sometimes the repetitive sequence of activities in the organizations actually transform or convey some meanings. That's the founder that reinforce or express the key values or what the organization want in terms of developing their culture. So they convey it into the activities, the practices of activities, and many others event, for example, that they sponsor or they organize involving their employees and so on. Symbol such as material symbols, for example, layouts of the corporations or the HQ, the types of the automobile, the top management use, and the size of the office, for example, is actually convey the culture also, and the employees learn from this symbol regarding the culture of the organizations, whether the culture of the organization is simple, flexible, modern, conservative, traditional. They can observe from the size of the office, from the executive perk. Perk means kind of bonuses or kind of some allowances or extra allowances that they give to their employees, to their executive. And language also, employees can learn about the culture through language. Language mean the terminology or the acronym, the jargons, the business term that the company use. Once maybe when new employees got hired, when the candidate got hired, they may be overwhelmed by the use of the terminology or the acronyms, the jargon that been used by employees in that organizations. But after sometimes, after the employees assimilates with the rest of the other employees, after sometimes it's become common. It's actually become something good that could unite members of the organizations to the culture or to the subculture of the organization. So jargon, for example, new terms, terminology. For example, if you study at USM, you will know, for example, E-Learn. E-Learn is considered as a acronyms or jargons for higher educations. And there are other things that's normally used by organizations, especially businesses. So when new employees got hired, they maybe become more overwhelmed. That means they may find it difficult at first, but after sometimes they become accused to it, accustomed to it. They be able to assimilate with the culture of the organizations. So how management creates a more ethical culture? It is important, like I mentioned in the first few slides of this chapter, the importance of ethics in the organizations. How can management create this kind of ethical culture? The organization can be a visible role model for their employees. Normally, employees will look to the top management as a benchmark. So if the top management display their behavior as a role model, this actually can become a benchmark guidance for the employees at the lower level to follow. And the organization also need to communicate ethical expectations from what they expect from the employees. For example, if they have code of ethics in the organization, is actually indirectly explained to the employees that this actually they need ethical standard from the employees. So having code of ethics can minimize ethical ambiguity of what is acceptable ethically and what is not acceptable ethically. So code of conduct can be used as a guideline for employees to determine how would they want to behave in terms of ethical orientation or ethical behavior. The organization also need to provide ethics training or ethical trainings. Maybe for new employees, they may not be well versed in the ethics, so it is important for the organizations to give some ethical trainings. This will reinforce the standard of conducts and will clarify which acts or which behavior are permissible and which behavior are not permissible based on the code of ethics. So by giving trainings, employees are exposed to what is good or what is correct and what is incorrect or what is wrong with in terms of ethical standards or ethical practices. And the organization also need to visibly rewards ethical acts and punish unethical ones. If the organizations do not punish the unethical behavior and do not reward the ethical acts, employee will say or will think that even though there are some code of ethics, but the organization didn't exercise it, didn't even enforce it. So when they observe that the organization didn't enforce the practices by punishing unethical behaviors conducted or by rewarding ethical behavior, employees will observe this and they will think that the unethical behavior is not really taken seriously, so they may involve in unethical behavior. So it is important for the organizations to reward ethical behavior or ethical acts and to punish unethical acts. If not, many people will do because they think that it is not really enforced in the organizations. Anyone can do unethical things but still get free from doing it, even though. And the organization also need to provide protective mechanisms. This could create a support network of ethical counselor, ombudsman, or ethics officer. So it is important for the organizations to provide the support network, such as having ethical counselor to give counseling to the employees who are not really known or who may be involved in unethical activities, to go to see the counselor, or having ombudsmen or ethical officer will indicate that the organization takes ethics breach violation as a very serious matter, and there's someone who have been given authorities to punish those who are doing unethical activities, and those there this also informing the employees that there are someone who will enforce the ethical practices in the organizations. So it indicate that the organization are very serious in safeguard their ethics, or in ensuring that their organizations or their culture according to the ethical practices. So there is a trend today for the organization to attempts to create a positive organizational culture. How to create a positive organizational culture actually can be done through emphasizing on building employee strengths. That means can rewards, providing reward to the employees who showing good positive culture or positive organizational culture more than punish it, and emphasize individual vitality growth, vitality regarding to the energetic or eagerness for developing themselves. And positive culture is not a cure of all. That means having a positive organizational culture is good for the betterments of employees, for the welfare, for the well-being of the employees. However, it's not the answer for all the problems. So positive culture is not a cure for all the disease. It's still a new idea though, it is still to be uncertain about how and when it is work best. So it is a good thing, but it's not a cure for everything. So it's still uncertain yet on how and when it will work best. So moving on to what is spirituality? Spirituality is related to workplace spirituality, especially. It's not about the organ. According to this textbook, it's when we talk about spirituality, it's not it does not necessarily related to organized religious practice. It's not about God or theology, that's religions. According to textbook, spirituality is not regarding the religions, it's not regarding the God, it's not regarding the religious practices. So workplace spirituality recognize that people have an inner life that nourishes and is nourished by meaningful work that take place in the context of community. So what is want to say here, workplace spirituality take concerns regarding people want to have inner life that's mean meaningfulness in terms of their life, that they can get satisfactions by involving in something meaningful and something that can nourish their soul, their inner life or their inner self, and or can be nourished by meaningful work or something that give them meaningfulness to their life. Because human being consists of soul and body, so soul also need to have, so because we have soul, that's mean we have a spiritual needs. So spirituality is related to finding meaningfulness in life, either it is related to work or it is related to day-to-day activities. So characteristic of spiritual organization, when we talk about spirituality in the workplace, we need to talk about the characteristic of spiritual organization. So cultural characteristics are present also in the spiritual organizations, including values. So when we talk about values, we talk about the meaningfulness of values in terms of spiritual, or in terms of social sustainabilities, that mean give us meaningful in performing our activities. So one of the values that be able to fulfill the spiritual needs in terms of organization is benevolence, in terms of spirituality at work is benevolence. So benevolence is showing kindness toward others and promoting the happiness of the employees and other stakeholders. So basically when we talk about spiritual at workplace, we want to find inner satisfactions or inner happiness can be done through volunteering in activities, can be done through charity, can, according to textbook, can be done through performing benevolence, that means through showing kindness toward others and promoting happiness.